Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you uh, for your company this morning with the Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra. This is the regular Sunday morning Dharma talk. Usually we have meditation, but today I'm going straight into the talk. Um, the topic of the talk today is the truth of the origin, which follows from the previous Sunday's talk, which is the truth of the suffering. Uh, these four truths, what we call Four Noble Truths, are very fundamental in understanding uh, teachings of the Buddha and also understanding our lives, challenges, rewards, realizations. And so therefore these Four Noble Truths are very ennobling indeed if you knew how to access these four truths. So the truth of the origin, uh, as the word truth talking about, uh, if we only knew the true origin of things, we will know what to prevent. That is the true origin of sufferings, and what is the true origin of happiness. So we would have much greater freedom and fitness to be able to prevent the truth of suffering. The truth of suffering uh, is denied by the ordinary people. It's only those who are enlightened ones, those who have those who have the vision of the enlightenment. They see the life as a suffering, and of course, this is a bit hard for at the beginning for most people to be told life is suffering, because they're all working hard not to suffer. And that's exactly the truth of the matter, is the suffering that they do not want keep coming, and there are three types of suffering, as we mentioned. Suffering is the very unpleasant experiences that we every day have, that we do not want at all, but yet we keep having the sufferings. So that's called truth of suffering. Of the nature of the truth of suffering is it has suffering of suffering. And then there are other things that we work very hard to bring some uh, freedom from suffering, and we might call them pleasure or happiness. These are actually, from the Buddhist point of view, that from the point of view of truth of suffering, it is the truth of the suffering of change. The truth of suffering of change is just because it changes. Um, um, Even the pleasure that we have is just soon it will be over and will be replaced by lack of it. As a result of that, that's called truth of change, truth suffering of change. Um, and we are often not able to maintain even the pleasure are so short-lived, and the suffering before and after takes over, and that's why it's called true suffering of change. And whereas the most people in spiritual traditions, even non-Buddhist and materialists, also are try to work very hard, try to prevent the suffering of suffering, and maybe even try to renounce the suffering of change. But the third truth, which is the third suffering, which is the all suffering of all pervasive conditioning, that's the third one. It's mainly, that's where the neutral feeling of grasping to the aggregate and a name as self, innately grasping itself, and then and one doesn't know that that is the real ground or basis of the true suffering. But most spiritual traditions, let alone civil, kind of secular knowledges, do not even talk about the truth of all pervasive suffering. So they don't teach. It is only the very distinctive feature of Buddhism is Buddhism highlights that how to renounce the all-pervasive suffering of conditioning. All-pervasive suffering of conditioning is that we are conditioned to grasp to the body and the physical aggregate and the name as self. And this very body, this very notion of who I am, who I wanted to be, and all of this, this very is the very basis, all pervasive. It's like every single sesame seed is pervaded with, or permeated with oil. And so likewise, every single existence is by nature suffering, because we are grasping to the physical aggregates and names and merely label concepts as me or mine. So that is the what you call all-pervasive suffering of conditioning. So today's topic, the truth of origin, is about how do we get these things right. If we were to renounce the three types of suffering, because three types of suffering is likened to illness. In Asanga's the Uttara Tantra, it talks about that the suffering must be understood. Its origin must be renounced, and cessation must be realized, and path to that must be followed. And so in order to renounce the true origin of suffering, so that's why the truth of origin is very important. Truth means there's a danger of us knowing the actual origin, the actual origin that we think we have apprehended as is probably could be false. So as we discuss with the truth of suffering, the truth of suffering, there are four characteristics of understanding the truth of suffering. That is, that all afflicted emotions are suffering. All compounded phenomena are impermanent. And therefore, there is no self, and everything is impermanent. Yeah, everything is impermanent, unsatisfactory. There's no self, and so these four kind of wrong views, thinking the body is permanent, or the body is pure, and our feelings are pleasant, and everything is permanent. There is truly a real self. These kind of four wrong views, what I call them PPPR as acronym. First P is pure body, thinking the body is pure, and all the feelings are pleasant, and that everything is permanent, and that there is a real self. So this PPR, the four wrong views. So therefore, if one has really understood the truth of suffering, then one gets to eradicate those four wrong views, relation that there is that body is in fact impure. All feelings are unsatisfactory, and that everything is impermanent, and there is no true self. So those are the four things. If you really understood, if you understood these four facts in relation to the truth of suffering, then we might try to understand the four facts of the truth of origin. So the origin, the truth of origin means that where is these sufferings that we do not want originate from? Because if we often think it does originate from something, we often are missourcing the true origin of suffering to some created by other people, or something that is independently arising, or something that is eternally there. And so we often have again the dreadful fact of wrong views. We again have all the truth of origin is wrong, because we not only we, but according to in Buddhist formal Buddhist teachings, when it talks about the four characteristic of truth of origin, it talks about these four. First is the cause, second is called origin, third is called strong production, and fourth is the conditions. So the reason the truth of origin is these four facts. This means that people actually do not think. There are lots of people who think that things arise from no cause, or mistaken cause, or incomplete cause, and so on. The number of non-Buddhist schools is the suffering just has no cause. They don't think that it's caused by one's karma or one's afflictions or one's ignorance. They deny the cause. So whereas in the first of these four, the causes is, yes, causes of the true causes of suffering are one's own afflictions. Affliction is the ignorance. The ignorance. So you have affliction could be three root afflictions, what we call three poisons. True origin of sufferings. The truth of origin is your afflictions. So you have to know that afflictions are the origin of sufferings, whether it's ignorance or desire. For instance, when we desire, our desire is the true origin of our unsatisfactoriness. But when we think, when we do not know the cause that is as desire, we often point finger and lay blame to things that are external, or things like that as a cause. So often we either argue there is no cause, or the thing that we try to point finger to is mistaken, is not an incorrect cause, or even we try to apprehend something, then we think we are apprehending to an incomplete cause. So therefore, or thinking there is some eternal creator God, So these are the mistaken facts of the origin of suffering. So because of these mistaken, dreaded kind of false facts, fictions, they have to be corrected by these four. Therefore, the first cause, is one's own afflictions, and then actions that are consummated under the sway of the affliction. For instance, the person may be thinking that drinking alcohol is not a cause of one's suffering. He might think it's cause of his happiness. So he's ignorantly enjoying or indulging in the alcohol, but he's ignorant that alcohol that he appears to be enjoying is actually the cause of the very suffering that his bodily habit, his life habit has been perpetuated by. He's completely ignorant of the cause that he himself is creating. Because of the ignorance of that, his desire for the alcohol, and his action of going to procure, going to purchase, spend the money, argue with people who try to not sell and telling that he had too much to drink, he become very frustrated, anger. Then he become perpetuated by his craving and desire for the craving for the alcohol. He's not aware of the cause, so he doesn't know the cause. And therefore he has an alcohol problem. He's suffering the suffering that he has in his family and friends, not liking him and not trusting him and not thinking he's reliable. All of these things came from his craving on drinking and alcoholism. So that shows the cause, the true cause, true origin. True origin is the cause of his action, cause of his unskillful, addicted action, and therefore desire, therefore anger, therefore frustration, therefore complete blatant ignorance of what he is doing. So he's not aware. So this, of course, example is given simply to alcoholism as a physical sort of conduct. But let's look at how people do not see the cause of their suspicion of somebody, their anger or resentment towards somebody, and then their anger towards somebody. They don't know that is the cause of their fear, their fearfulness, and their inability to make friends with other people, or their inability to trust people is because they have some deep-seated anger, and they do not know that they're ignorant of their anger's harmfulness. Because of that, they would not. They are so afflicted or intoxicated by it. They don't know what they're saying is harmful to themselves, to others, and what their conduct is aggressive and violent. They are completely unable to tell the cause is their anger and resentment, or righteousness, or enmity, or arrogance, or jealousy. Any of the affliction will do. They could completely overwhelm your mind, and that's become the very cause of the suffering. So the truth of suffering in the person who couldn't sleep, who couldn't taste food, who couldn't focus on his task, and that's because a person is so addicted to his craving, his wanting, his desire. He might even think it's his love. He thinks he loves the person or he loves the thing, but he doesn't know it's a desire. It's the desire is the true origin of suffering. It's love is not. Love causes happiness and promotes happiness. The person thinks he loves the person, but why are you so frustrated and angry and sleepless and can't taste food and focus your concentration on the job? It's because you are poisoned by the desire. So one doesn't see the desire as the cause, and so this is why it's only the noble beings can see the true origin of suffering, being desire, being hatred, being ignorance, being jealousy, being arrogance, and so on. So when you cannot see the afflictions are true origin of suffering, then you wouldn't see how many of your unskillful actions are perpetuated by these very afflictions. So therefore, when we talk about truth of origin, there's a truth of origin of afflictions, truth of origin of actions, because direct actions that one has committed brings that suffering, isn't it? But that suffering is a result of negative action. Negative action is due to the true origin of afflictions. So that's the first one. So one needs to know the causes. The true causes of sufferings are one's afflictions and karma. Then the second is the origin. Second is the origin. The origin meaning that it's not just there is a sole one cause, one origin of suffering. So that very that is not only one origin, but it is perpetuated by many all the things you do, all the things you can do or say or not follow, or all of the origin. Through all of the origin. Tibetan word is kunjung. Kun means all, jung means origin. All origin of your wrong choices, of words or deeds or actions and afflictions are perpetuating again and again and again. And one doesn't know how much perpetuation is created by this. So the true origin. The true origin of suffering, truth of origin is the repeatedly perpetuated karma and actions. So one shouldn't think that these two facts, the cause and origin, are one. The origin meaning that it is continuously producing as a result of undetected karma and affliction. Until the karma and afflictions are detected, there will be no slowing down, but to the incessant perpetuation of the anger, restlessness, sleeplessness, and frustration, and on. There is no sign of slowing down or pausing. Why? Because it's perpetuated. Perpetuated is like a vicious cycle. So there is the true origin of suffering is the vicious cycle of not being able to stop the thought, belief, and afflictions and negative actions consummated under their sway. So therefore, instead of thinking, so it's not one thing, because one might think it's only one is the cause of suffering. No, the multitude of your own doing, that therefore your idea of origin of suffering is mistaken. Your idea of suffering is not getting what you want, or not somebody cooperating you, is not the true origin. That's a mistaken or mistakenly recognized origin of suffering. Correctly recognized origin is this perpetuation that has not stopped, that is continue to bite on you and have a really negative effect on you. So that's why it's therefore the cause, true origin of cause, true origin of the origin are two very different things. Second one is much more perpetuated level. The third is called Rapkye in Tibetan. Rapkye means very strong production, strong degree of production. Now the initial cause and the various other causes origin has now perpetuated so much so that it has produced a very peak level of suffering, and so intense. So there is no sign. There's no way that the result will not produce because of its strength of the level that the production has already grown into. So therefore, there is no sign of any cause being incomplete, but there's almost sign of being complete production of all the causes. Complete production of all the causes. So most people, when they suffer, they think, I don't deserve this suffering. I didn't do this. They think they have not created the complete cause. But actually they have produced so strong a degree that there's no way that that suffering will not be produced because of the strong causes of the condition that has already reached to its peak. So the person doesn't have any sense of understanding the true origin of suffering is their own strong production of this view or anger or afflictions and their reactions and their overreaction. They don't see. They don't have the ability to see. They have no vision to see how their own action has now put to that level of not being able to do much. So only the noble ones, Arya beings, they can see that the result will be produced because all the causes has been completely consummated to the degree of strong production. And then the fourth one is the conditioning. Conditioning meaning that now every other factors will necessarily will condition to the production of the suffering. So truth of origin is these four: the cause, the true origin, and strong production, and the conditionings. The conditioning. There are many contributing factors that almost everything become interdependently originated to produce the production. So therefore, there is no sign of the not being able to. There's no sign of being able to stop the suffering because all the true origin has not been recognized. One first think there is no cause. Secondly, when one thinks there is a cause, it's a mistaken cause. They are usually going after, and also when they think they have suffering, they think, no, I haven't created enough causes to suffer this. So this kind of mistaken, so opposite of truth. Truth is the fact. So false. This is dreaded false of thinking there is no cause, thinking there is mistaken, thinking that is incomplete. All these kind of cause-related fictitious views, improper views, incorrect views, has to be rectified by this realization of the truth of the origin. Because truth of origin of suffering, if the truth of origin is apprehended with this four, then there is a actual cessation. There will be the suffering, truth of suffering that we talked about. Truth of suffering we talked about previous talk is a result of not being able to stop the cause, which is the truth of the origin. So if the cause has not been stopped, you can't prevent the result. This is deliberately why the Four Noble Truths has been taught in the order of result and cause as samsarically, and also order of result and cause nirvanically, and the third and fourth Noble Truth. To attain the complete liberation of enlightenment, nirvana, one has to follow the path, which is the cause, to produce the cessation, the result. So that's why the first two Noble Truths, truth of suffering is the result, and the truth of origin is the cause. And so you cannot teach to the sentient being at the very beginning the great high promises of enlightenment and nirvana, bliss and happiness, because you can't entice them about the promises of heaven or enlightenment and nirvana, because it's just neither here nor the people have any experience. Whereas if you start talking about the truth of suffering, that is actually a fact, because everybody's got enough suffering on their plate, so to speak. Only problem is they don't know that the life is but suffering, and that very suffering that their life has or is the caused by one's own ignorance and so on. So that's why Buddha took great liberty to explain the truth of suffering is the result. And if you don't want this unpleasant suffering and suffering of change and suffering of all pervasive conditioning, then you need to first know that these facts, the truth of suffering. If you know the true facts of the truth of suffering, that the body is impure, there's now no desirable pure body, either in your body or in anyone's body. It may look pure and desirable, but that's because of your ignorance. Your ignorance creates this fantasy as undesirable as desirable, impure as impure. And yet only the exalted beings know that what they're desiring is figment of imagination of the ignorant mind, and then creating craving for the object. So when you want something so much, you don't know how bad it is to you. You don't know how unpalatable it is to you, now, later, or when you gain it. You don't have any vision of what actually it is, because you have completely darkened, completely blinded by the avidya, by the lack of knowledge that it is impure, that it is unpleasant, that it is impermanent, that it is not real. one is completely blinded by this. And that's why the truth of origin, truth of suffering must be understood. When you understand the truth of suffering, then you understand the body is impure, it is unsatisfactory, it is impermanent, and it is not real. When you have this understanding as the truth of suffering, then you become much keener to understand what is the true origin of these things. How come I have been mistaken this long, misguided this too long, and then you become very keenly interested. So what are the causes? So previously one might have thought there is no cause, like some in very early non-Buddhist religious tradition in India think suffering has no cause. It's just is, They think the suffering has no cause, So the denial of the cause. Other schools says that yes, but they say it is caused by your original sin or something, So that is a mistaken cause. First, denying the cause. Secondly, even if you try to apprehend, it's a mistaken cause. Thirdly, even if it's, they think that even though you take partial responsible, but you think that there is actually no complete cause. So there is a denial of the cause, mistaken cause, incomplete cause. In order to rectify these kind of wrong views, therefore, these four truth or origin facts, that there are causes. The causes are afflictions, karma, ignorance of the both. And because of not knowing this, therefore, these perpetually originate, this perpetually causes the things unceasingly. There's incessant suffering production, which is called true origin of origination of the suffering. So that's why it is not a mistaken, it's not causeless and mistaken cause. It is actually the karma and afflictions are causes. It's not just a single soul cause. There are many causes such a karma and affliction. So it's not causeless cause. It is caused by many causes, and it is not by mistaken causes. It is being perpetuated again and again by the very causes of the suffering, and therefore you have this strong production of the suffering that could not protract to not to produce suffering, not to produce the result. It will necessarily produce results. So you cannot not get old because you're born, you're young already. So by the time you're born, you're already getting mature and then big adult, and you are already it's your total strong production of the life is such that you have no choice but to become old and die, so to speak. So therefore, this, if you once you understand that these true four facts of the truth of origin of suffering, then one will have this gradual suspension of the ignorance and afflictions, and ability to pause and watch one's mouth, watch one's thoughts, watch one's deeds. Then actually one is able to now slowly pause and suspension of the actions, because you can only suspend the negative actions when you have the awareness that what are the causes, what are the conditions. Because of that, your suffering will necessarily be minimized or completely terminated once you're able to do that. So that this kind of practice enables oneself to have a good glimpse of the what we call relationship between the truth of suffering and truth of origin. When you're able to look at relation with the truth of origin, then you do not have this either nihilistic view that there is no cause, nor eternalistic view that it is that is something you cannot do anything about it type of thing. So, but rather you have this very rational view that there are true causes or conditions of suffering is one's own afflictions and actions, and the only thing is one needs to become conscious and then being able to suspend. If you can suspend the affliction from consummating, then the actions under the sway will be. And then, of course, when the cause is not created, the result will not be produced. The result, which is suffering, truth of suffering, there is no suffering. There is no real suffering that you have to worry. Suffering doesn't exist from its own side. So suffering itself is not a causeless. If it's causeless suffering, we cannot uncause it, because it is caused by suffering. Because suffering is caused by something. If you stop the cause, then the result will necessarily be stopped. If you don't hold up the umbrella, if you don't open up the umbrella and hold on your head, there will be no shadow. So therefore, don't open the umbrella if you don't like the shadow, because it is blocking the sun. So don't open the umbrella. So you have to know you're opening the umbrella. When you know the umbrella shouldn't be open, don't open it. When you don't open it, then the cold shade of the umbrella will not be there. And so you basically become much more conscientious in the action, and the actions are influenced by afflictions. When you become conscientious about the afflictions, the actions themselves hasn't got a mind of their own. There's no action itself is not a true cause of suffering. Actions are only created when it is instigated by the affliction. Affliction is undetected when you're ignorant that it is your affliction and action that is the causing. So when you become aware of the affliction, the awareness of the affliction is not affliction. So therefore the affliction has necessarily become, because as soon as you bring the light, the darkness disappears. So when you know it's affliction, not the person, not the thing, not the condition, it's your affliction that you have to suspend. As soon as you know how to suspend the afflictions, which is the true origin of suffering, so the true cause of suffering, then there will be no origination of suffering, origination of the action under the influence of non-affliction. So because of that, there will be no strong production. There will be suspension of the production. And therefore it removes all the condition from the producing any of the result. So therefore you can see subjectively how one can go and cause great change in oneself. Not only is everything is impermanent, that is pleasure becomes unsuffering, but even suffering becomes impermanent. Even suffering becomes impermanent. And then when the suffering is impermanent, the suffering is not some kind of a causeless result or mistaken cause produce result or incomplete cause. You don't have any of these dreaded wrong views about suffering. You actually know suffering has causes, not just one. And suffering doesn't get produced by the mistaken causes, So if you cannot be produced by someone's wrongdoing, because that's the mistaken cause, their wrongdoing will cause suffering to them, not to you. You may be conditioned to suffer if you yourself has got that kind of mentality, vulnerable to be instigated by others, because it's your own affliction being stirred up by their conditioning. So therefore, these four facts about the truth of origin, when you have this good understanding, then you could see, cause is now produced. If the cause is not affliction and actions are suspended, and then perpetuate origination is suspended, so non-perpetuation becomes now lulled. There is a suspended. There's a suspended action does not produce strong production. So therefore strong production will be now weak production or non-production. And then all the other causes and conditions hasn't got this, if the fire is not lit, even the wind blows, it would not inflame it. So first don't start the fire, don't bring the fuel, don't ignite the fire. Then you cannot say if the wind blew. Wind can only blow if there is the cause and origination and strong production, and you are fanning it. then the wind becomes just our conditioning. So those are the factors that you say, he did this, he did this. These are just conditions. These are just the contributing factors to the very true origin and the true origination and strong production that is largely true origin of your affliction and true origin of your karma, action. When you become very comprehensive, when you comprehend this, there's amazing sense of you can bear witness to the reduction of the suffering, because suffering is the result, and the result is not producing because the cause has been suspended. This understanding will enable oneself to become good at then scientifically understand, if I control my thoughts and afflictions, and these are the true origin. Even the true origin, but they do not truly exist from their own side. Even your afflictions and actions also do not independently or permanently exist. Even the true origin of suffering are unsatisfactory origin of suffering. They cannot produce suffering incessantly, because they are true. Even true origin of suffering, your affliction, karma, also interdependent. They are not independently existing. They are not permanently existing. They are not truly existing. Okay? So therefore you can be very kind to your even true origin of suffering. Your affliction and actions of the past also do not exist, are not permanent, are not truly existing from their own side. They are also impermanent. Even true origin of suffering is impermanent. They are they are not satisfactorily strong from their own side, and therefore they are not permanent. See? Therefore you can intersect the first four views of the Noble Truth of Suffering, that things are impermanent, they're unsatisfactory, they're not truly existing. All of those things you can use as a force to counter-argue the afflictions and actions. Otherwise, people think my afflictions are me, my actions are me. They lump themselves with actions and affliction. Even actions and affliction themselves are impermanent, unsatisfactory, not truly existing. So have that kind. You see, this is the vision. This is the true vision. This is the sight that you will gain by listening, firstly listening, and then contemplating, then comprehending, and then actually meditating on the true origin of suffering. And therefore, it's very unlike what they call original sin. In Buddhism, even your true origin of suffering isn't true in the sense they are permanent. They are true in the sense they do not truly exist independently, permanently from their own side. So this is a very important point. So that when you do that, then we will pay heed to the Buddha who said, truth of origin must be renounced. Then we will be able to renounce, because we are renouncing the wrong view. The Buddha's teaching is about giving us an understanding how to not hold wrong view, by knowing what wrong view they are, and then highlight them and then not subscribe to those wrong views. So with this we will conclude here this today's talk. Thank you very much. We'll have the other talk, the truth of the cessation, in the next talk. Thank you very much.